Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bulbacast. I'm your host, the Caps Fan, and today we'll be discussing with a number of Bulba staffers the recent trailer 2 of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I had to think about that name. And we're going to give some thoughts, reactions, maybe a little bit predictions, and just overall generic opinions on the two trailers, or the second trailer, rather. But first, I'd like to introduce the cast members today, and alongside your introduction, if you wouldn't mind, in 10 words of less, just give your initial overall thoughts on the trailer. And we'll start with Wyndham Calling.
Hi, my name is Wyndham Calling. I help out with Bulba Garden both over on the forums and on our Twitter account. My thoughts on the trailer. Obviously, lots of exciting new information, lots of fantastically fun new species, but also quite a lot of restraint in terms of things we didn't see, which I'm sure we'll come on to.
That was a lot more than 10 words. Joking aside. I will introduce Fitzy next, if you wouldn't mind.
Hey, this is Fitzy. I'm one of the moderators over on the Bulba Garden Discord, and my early thoughts for these games are Venonat.
You know, I was going to say just that, and I'm really upset that you said that because my 10 words now have to be changed. But nevertheless.
No, Venonat it's been one of my favorites since Red, and I think my brain shut down after I saw it in the trailer. So that's my early thoughts.
Next, we have Archaic once again. Archaic, you there?
Are you sure about that?
Is he there? He was just here.
I am here, but my sound does not appear to be working very well.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Hope you can
so long as you guys can still hear me, my internet connection isn't that great at the moment.
I think we can still hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay.
Type in the chat if you can hear Archaic.
Yeah, no, it looks like it's working in Discord now. I'm not sure what the problem there was. Okay, so 10 words or less. Maybe now people will stop asking for a Pokemon MMO.
That's a good one. I think that is super accurate given what we've seen in the trailers as well. I'm excited to talk about that because that was actually one of my favorite pieces of the trailer. And then last we have Glick returning to Bulbacast for the first time in a long time. So welcome, Glick.
Hi, I used to host Bulbacast probably over a year ago by now, and I run the TCG section on Bulbapedia. 10 words or less, I am ready to play Pokemon on motorcycles.
Nice. Yes. Very, very good. Okay, so with introductions out of the way, I think we can go ahead and get into discussion on the trailer. Let's start by talking about the characters that we saw in the trailer. We saw a number of new characters that were previously unrevealed to us. We have 2 professors. For the first time, there will be exclusive professors, depending on which version you get. We have Professor Sada in Pokemon Scarlet and Professor Turo in Pokemon Violet. Anyone have a particular preference? Thoughts on the fact that they're doing this in exclusives now? Did one of the designs particularly strike your fancy, or even convince you to get one of the versions?
I mean, I wouldn't say that one has struck my fancy over another, but it was very interesting to me that they're clearly playing up this kind of rival schools kind of deal with the 2 obvious academies or whatever they are, Scarlet and Violet, the professors, which presumably are each at a different one. It just makes me think about the story beats that they're most likely going to tap into with that kind of dichotomy?
Just the future past sort of thing, or just the two, just, I don't know.
I mean, the future past thing's going to be part of it, sure, but just the fact that there's like these two competing institutions, and I mean, it's perhaps this is how they introduce conflict without having an explicit villain team.
All right. Interesting. That's a good point, considering we didn't see any villain team information in the trailer.
That's funny. That Archaic mentioned villain teams, because I remember I said in a group chat, my first thought when I saw the professor for Violet, Turo, literally my first thought was his outfit looks like an evil team's outfit. And then a lot of people started speculating, what if the professor from the other version is the villain in your game?
Oh.
Like Sada is the villain in Violet and Turo is the villain in Scarlet. Which I think would be really interesting. I don't know if I want it to happen, but I do think it would be really interesting for a character to serve the purpose of both the villain and the Pokemon professor, who's always been that like most trusted adult in Pokemon games.
I mean,
I
they've
hope that
certainly got the right faces for it, don't they? They look like they could be easily twisted into being an antagonist.
Well, they look like Chairman Rose. That's what I got from that. Looks like a slightly changed Chairman Rose asset in two different
Oh,
ways.
just wait for all of the headcanons that these are somehow the mother and father of Chairman Rose.
I can't wait.
I was going to say, even sort of stepping aside from that conversation around that potential conflict and that potential antagonism of the two designs, Sada just looks far more fun. There's a bit more going on in terms of the clothing, in terms of the accoutrements there, and Turo does look a little generic to me. There's some slight futurism going on there, but otherwise not terribly exciting. I mean, I'll probably end up picking up both anyway, but at the moment it would be Scarlet on the basis of Sada.
I'm hoping if the professor is, or the other professor is an antagonistic force, it isn't the big bad, because the last two generations we've done bait and switches where we've had a beginning antagonist that is the typical villainous team, but then the actual villain turns out to be someone different. Just doing that again seems kind of bland.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of agree with you there. I do hope that it is, they do it well if they choose to. But I would say that, if that is the case, I think given the status of these games as kind of like the next step forward in Pokemon now, like we've already had Legends Arceus, which is, a spin-off, but, kind of changed up the formula a bit. But these are supposed to be the real next big thing for Pokemon. A main series game that's open world, right? I would expect them to go all out with the story as much as they can within their limits. And if they do choose to, make the professors the antagonist, or the opposing professor the antagonist in each version, I'd hope that they at least take some time to make it right if that's the case. But it's kind of a long way.
I think it's worth. I think it's worth adding that you don't necessarily need either of these characters to be outright villains in order to be antagonistic forces. You can get slightly more relaxed flavors of antagonism somewhere around perhaps Team Plasma in certain stages of black and white as opposed to some, overtly malign force.
Oh, I'm sure the opposing school will be the quote-unquote villainous team for the game. I just want the leader to actually be that more near-duel and not evil.
I don't think the opposing school will be outright evil or something like that. Like antagonist, perhaps in the sense of rival. But I mean,
Yeah, like
if you look at that segment where they've got the four characters doing co-op, two of them are Scarlet, two of them are Violet, in their school uniforms. So it's clear that there's still going to be a way in story for us to be friends with people from the other school.
I don't remember any clear indication that both schools existed in both games. I got the idea that I thought it was like alternatives. Like you go to the one in Scarlet and the one in Violet, and it just is the one.
That would make
So,
more sense to me, given the version
Yeah.
differences.
But I don't actually know. I do say, since we're talking about which professors we prefer, um, it obviously we don't know much about them, but Toro gave me a more reserved vibe. And I actually responded on Twitter to the Bulbagarden Twitter, talking about the easygoing attitude of the professors like Kui. And for me, I always liked. I think my favorite professor from past generations is Rowan, that really reserved guy who, over the course of the game, you get to know him better and get to see that softness underneath that really stern exterior that he has. And I just from the very little bit you see of them, Turo gave me more of that vibe. Um, I am already on Team Violet, but I did get there was just something about Turo that appealed to me a little more than Sada. Like if I had to pick one of them.
That's fair. I do want to move on from the professors, but before I do, any last comments on them from the cast?
I'd all be down if Sada was just totally fed up with the fact that all of her research assistants are 10-year-olds.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know if the Pokemon Company will metagame that hard, but we'll see.
My only concern is that the whole future past dichotomy that they seem to be going with and tying the professors explicitly into that. I've never been a fan of narrative tropes based around that dichotomy because you either get the future basically presented as runaway exploitative despoiling of the earth if they're the antagonists, or you get the past being presented as these like hopelessly backwards, primitive, like keep humanity in barbarism, technological Luddite types. And to me, that if that sort of stuff's embedded with the schools, it suggests to me, and assuming there are two schools, it suggests to me that we might not like either faction. Or they're going to have to dramatically change each faction for each game just so they can have a good guy and bad guy group. I'm not sure what it really says about what what tropes they're going to adopt, but it actually makes me a little concerned for where they might go with the story.
Yeah, I mean, even the designs alone can kind of allude to that if you look a little deeper. I mean, given that, Sada's design is very, kind of, I've seen the words feral very wild. The clothing that she's wearing is very natural, lots of earthy tones, and then, you know, Turo looks like he's, wearing a like a Tron outfit. But I mean, Sada's design in particular kind of leads me to, kind of take that point that you made a little bit more seriously, because, I don't know, the designs are important, and they wouldn't have included, though, that specific design if they weren't going for a specific theme, right? So that is something else to consider for sure. But there was also, and I do want to move on from the professors. I apologize for the awkward transition, but there was also one other character that we were introduced to in this trailer, and that was Nimona, I think is her name. But she seems to be another kind of student, maybe teacher, who has your first battle with her, and I've seen. Well, I don't want to go too deep too immediately, but I've seen a lot of people saying that in the Pokemon community, saying that they think that she's going to end up being the champion at the end, and that's why she was revealed so early. She's not the rival, she's the champion, just based off the fact that she's got like this kind of mysterious vibe, and not a lot of information was revealed about her intentions or anything like that.
I'm going to use an Australian butchering of a Spanish language phrase here. ¿Por qué no los dos?
That's fair.
Why can't she be your rival and the champion that you face at the end, just like Shigeru was in Gen 1?
I mean, yeah. But do we think she's the champion, though?
I
don't think she is at the start. I think she might be at the end. She's your senpai, at least.
The one thing is that for the longest time, there was always you knew what was coming in a Pokemon game, and they've really started upending that in recent times. And after Sword and Shield, we don't even know how they're going to choose the champion. Everybody was talking about the elite, like even Sun and Moon got rid of gyms and still had the Elite Four that ended with you becoming champion after defeating the Elite Four. And then Sword and Shield threw that out the window. So it's entirely possible. I don't think that she is the champion, but I do think that there is a decent chance that she might be that final fight, along the lines of closer to like Hao and Kukui being the final fight in Alola. The idea that she is going to turn out to be that final ultimate challenge, but I don't think she's going to be the champion throughout the story, like Archaic said.
I think where I'm at, I'm quite agnostic in terms of what potential role she might hold. A few things I'd point out with regards to the speculation is that as a fandom these days, whenever we get a small snippet of information on any of these characters, we then pick it apart for the greatest possible amount of meaning from the fewest possible words. So with Nimona, we've got potentially what is just a throwaway line that she's an experienced Pokemon trainer. Lots of people potentially extrapolating from this. If you cast your mind back to the Sword and Shield news cycle, Leon was stated to have never failed in an official Pokemon match. Quite a straightforward line, as it turned out in the final game. But at the time, a number of us sort of tore through that, trying to figure out what does an official match mean? Is there something slightly suspect going on here? And of course, turned out that Leon was just a nice guy and a very good trainer. And then the second thing to add on Nimona specifically is that there is a slight element of intrigue around her name, as we pointed out on the Bulbagarden Twitter. Her Japanese name, Nemo, is Latin for nobody or no name. And the name Nimona itself could be an anagram of no name. So this could potentially be an alias, or it could instead just speak to themes that we are going to see throughout the game, rather than this person, this character, trying to hide something about themselves. But there is that additional element of intrigue there.
I think Nemona's from the future.
I
think
find it.
Or the past, depending on which game you're from.
I wouldn't really think the past would make sense, given that she's already an experienced trainer. In the past, there wouldn't really be trainers.
I do find it really interesting that in the trailer, at least, she's wearing an outfit that is very similar to the Scarlet player character's outfit, with the orange pants and whatnot. But there's been a lot of speculation about that glove on her right hand, which has some like cybernetic looking decorations on it, and what looks like a high-tech bracelet on the wrist of that glove. If there is a split between the past and future between these two games, I find it really interesting that her outfit seems to kind of combine those two aesthetics.
I mean, a
The
bracelet could just be the trigger for whatever the gimmick is, right?
It could
I mean,
be.
we've had Mega Ring and then the Dynamax bracelet, right? So
And there's also her wearing Scarlet is just because you're playing Scarlet. There's shots on the website that show her in the Violet outfit as well.
okay, so then it's presumable to say that she graduated from your school potentially,
Or just a senior,
senior
student, something like that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, the name thing is particularly interesting, Wyndon. I mean, if she is your rival, it has been a long time since you could name your rival. Maybe that is indicative of the fact that she's a nameable rival.
Or it could even be something as simple as it's a clever nudge, nudge, wink, wink from Game Freak to say, in the past you could name your rivals. This time you're not. But we're kind of subtly alluding to that with a play on words here.
All right.
Either that, or she most definitely is the most evil villain the franchise has yet to see. She's got a hidden past, etc., etc.
I think she's
Or
Lusamine reincarnated.
Or she's secretly a missing clownfish.
Nah, she's actually a
Okay,
Pokemon.
Finding Nimona. You gonna get a spin-off? Are you gonna propose that to the Pokemon Company, Fitzy?
Of course.
Of course, if we just want to go back to basics, given what we've seen, or what you already discussed, Wyndon, with Leon, what's to say she's not just an upperclassman who's helpful and acts as a bit of a mentor?
Don't be so willfully naive. There's darkness in those eyes.
All right. Well, I do want to move on to some of the other topics seen in the trailer, so I will go ahead and say that's it for the characters. Any last comments on any of the characters that you guys want to make before we move on?
Turo looks exactly like Reed Richards as he appeared in Multiverse of Madness.
I will say you did leave out one very important character who we saw in the trailer.
Is it
Caps.
Venonat?
No, Venonat is obviously very important. But we got a glimpse of this game's The Power of Science is Amazing guy.
Yes. That is so true. I can't believe I
One-
forgot that.
One of the most, like, it's him and Shorts Kid. They're the most important recurring characters in the whole series.
Yeah. Well, there you go. He's there.
Can't just over that. Yep.
He exists. But yeah. Okay, that's all for the characters. Just gonna check the chat, see if we have any questions or anything like that in there. Professor Mega Chad and Professor Isla from Chrono Trigger. I have not played Chrono Trigger, so I don't know what the significance of their designs is to that game, but I will. I definitely think that Turo looks like Mega Chad.
Yeah,
Isla
Ali,
is
yeah,
she's a cave
barbarian
woman
woman
with
from the
pointy
past.
hair.
Yeah,
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, I'll have to play Chrono Trigger. It's on my list. But anyway, okay, moving on. We have a little small discussion on some of the mechanical features that were shown in the trailer. Starting with probably my favorite thing that was shown off in this trailer, and that is the ability for up to 4-player co-op in this game. Now, we're not sure whether this is local or online co-op, but co-op exists, and it was one of the best features in, or perhaps the only good feature, if you want to go that far, in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee.
Whoa.
And personally,
shots
the
fired.
fact that you might be able to play this game like completely, the story of this game from start to finish with 4 of your friends, is incredibly intriguing to me, especially if there's local co-op, because I would love to play this game through with some of my friends that way. But what are your thoughts on co-op, guys? Do you guys plan on using it at all, or is it just kind of like something you think is good or a nice feature for accessibility or something like that?
My
So
wife and I will absolutely be using this to play together. What I thought was interesting is the implication that it's persistent in that you don't have to stay together, and that you could split up and move around the world while still be sharing that same world.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder.
I mean, that alone like makes me think that it's online co-op, because
so
that
Yeah,
would make more sense with online.
but also like that. It was that online thing showing people in both those school uniforms that made me think that you do actually have both schools existing as independent entities rather than simply being the same school reskinned.
Right.
so
Fitzy,
I
what were you
don't
gonna say?
I don't want to be the wet blanket. But I'm gonna be the wet blanket. Um my biggest thing is a lot of people have focused on the idea that it is a deeper multiplayer experience than we've had, which could be true. But I personally, and if one of you has seen this, please let me know because I've been looking for it. I've not seen any indication that this multiplayer is gonna be that kind of like MMO style running through the game with other people. Um, the in the trailer, technology guy says you can connect with, you know, 3 other friends and go on an adventure together. Um, the Pokemon website says that you can explore unfamiliar areas with your friends and family. Um, and this might just be me being pessimistic, but we've had a game already where you can connect with up to 3 other friends and go on an adventure and explore new areas with them. And it was called Dynamax Adventure in Crown Tundra. Um, so I'm just a little like, I'm really worried that this is going to be one of those situations that the fandom as a whole over the years has a pattern of doing, which is they have latched on to a few, and it's kind of like what we were saying about Nimona. we've latched on to a few a few specific words and have built a theory out of it. Like the fandom as a whole, not just us. And I'm worried that it is not going to be what people think it's going to be, and that it's going to be judged harshly for not being what people convinced themselves it was.
I mean, that's just a fault of the Pokemon fandom as a whole, in my opinion. But I do see your point, and I mean, it's possible that we may be assuming a little too much here. But at
Yeah.
the same time, the footage that they showed in the trailer, and like, I don't want to like jump on your point too much, Fitzy, because I do think it's a good one, and especially so because even in Legends Arceus, people had immediately like they saw the clip of your trainer jumping off the ledge and flying on a Braviary, and it was the same thing as that clip in Breath of the Wild where you jump off the building and you ride your sailcloth, and oh yeah, this game is 100% open world, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean that has already happened and is common with this fandom. But I mean, at the very least, even the like you brought up Dynamax Adventures in the pre-recorded footage for this video that you guys have been watching. I am doing Dynamax Adventures because it's like my favorite thing to do in Sword and Shield. So even if it's something as small as that, if they manage to make it as good as Dynamax Adventures is, in my opinion, then I'm okay with it. But the wording that they give on the website, to me personally, alludes to the potential for some sort of co-op. I don't know. Again, it could be an MMO style where it's online and you can go through the whole world with 4 people and go through the whole story, whatever, right? Or maybe it's local, or maybe there's both. Who knows, right? But the fact that they're even putting that out there at this point, to me, indicates that there's at least some sort of functionality beyond your classic battling and trading.
I'm personally expecting it's going to be no deeper than something like Animal Crossing's online. Like being able to play mini games and do things like the Dynamax Adventures and so forth, but I don't actually expect this to allow us to go through co-op through the story itself. I think the Pokemon fandom has wanted an MMO for a very, very long time, an unreasonably long time, really. Back when people were first talking about it, it was like, okay, but if you did make an MMO, Nintendo's console isn't even online at that point, so how would you do it? And as soon as we had DS, it's like, oh, now they could do an always online thing, and of course they didn't. But yeah, I very much doubt they're going to integrate things to share the story, to like move around the world and go together with your friends and maybe be able to watch them battle or perhaps even jump into battles, have raid battles together. I mean, maybe I often look to the anime to see what may be being planned, and I look to the stuff that we're seeing there currently with Gore and Project Mu, and looking at how those are set up, and I'm thinking, you could use these kinds of ideas as your little multiplayer mini games and so forth in the new game, and maybe that's what they're setting us up for. But I don't think we're going. I mean, I don't think we're actually going to have a complete open world. I think it's going to be more zonal, like Legends Arceus was. But I don't. I don't think we're going to have like a true, like we're not going to form parties to complete story beats. Let's put it that way.
That's fair. That Animal Crossing comparison is a good one. I mean, I think that Yeah, everything you said there, maybe it seems to me like it might be more, if it is truly kind of what you were like, if their vision is kind of what you imagined. It's kind of more along the lines of how maybe they intended Sword and Shield's online functionality to be, because the online in that game is generally somewhat broken. It's very ancient in terms of, you got to have link codes and you have to be connected to Ycom, and in order to go online with randoms you have to like select a card where someone is seeking something, and it's really frustrating and kind of, backwards a little bit. But in this game, you have like player characters that run around and you can interact with them in the overworld, and then as soon as you interact with them, perhaps something will happen. Or if it is, kind of like an Animal Crossing experience where, everyone, like your party of four go into, like, they go to someone's world, and then the four of you can run around and do raids and interact with each other to start battles or trades, kind of like if the Union Room was in the whole world. That would make sense. And I think that, that sort of thing would be what they were initially trying to do with Sword and Shield, but they just couldn't get that far. So that makes sense to me. Anyone else got thoughts, opinions, responses?
I'm not expecting the multiplayer to be anything more than a glorified Union Room.
Fair.
You're
I'm
going to
expecting
see
more than
3 other
that.
people running around the map, and the only interaction is with directly talking to them to initiate trade, battle, etc. I don't think there's a chance of like 2 people entering the same wild battle at the same time.
I mean, I'm expecting more than that just from what they've said. Um, and to be clear, I'm hoping for good things out of it. Like I said, I don't want to be a wet blanket about it. Um, but like even if it was just like a more refined and streamlined Dynamax Adventures, like you said, Caps, I loved Dynamax Adventures. I spent hours doing it when Crown Tundra came out. Just because it was a new take on Pokemon. It was a new way to play while still being rooted in the traditions of Pokemon. So I'm excited for whatever it is. I'm just, I think it's going to be a middle ground between what Glick just said and a lot of the speculation that I've heard about what it might be.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm specifically referring to the overworld co-op mode. I'm
Oh.
certain there's going to be a multiplayer battle facility or something that is instance sectioned off from the overworld that you have to specifically like load up something completely different.
Well, one thing I will say is that in the trailer, you do see someone running up to some other player. You see the player character running up to another player character that's visible in the overworld. They like greet each other for a second, and then you see a Pokeball like fly out into the sky, right? Indicating that, perhaps a trade was made, right? So maybe it is similar to Archaic's theory then of, you have these people existing in your overworld, but they can only interact with it in like a limited capacity, and in order to like perhaps, they can fight their own wild battles, they can, get into maybe their own trainer battles, but you know it is still segmented, it's not an MMO, right? So any Pokemon that they catch would be transported back to their world, and in order to actually trade with them, you have to interact with them, and then that Pokemon gets traded back over to their world. So I think that there's a lot of good speculation around this, and I think that there's a lot of really good ideas that have been expressed in this cast as well. Um, but I think the lesson here is, and thank you, Fitzy, for keeping my expectations in check, is just to like there's not a lot of information out yet, and there will be more information revealed over the next couple of months until this game comes out, and we will get more information on what exactly the online capabilities are as more information comes out, and to keep your expectations in check, because just because they have, you know, 4 people running around in the same world doesn't mean it's an MMO, right? So
I will say there is one thing I'm hopeful of with this. That I mean, using that Animal Crossing analogy, if it is inviting other people to your game, is this going to be a way that people can obtain the regional exclusive Pokemon? That they can actually be invited to the game of someone who has the other version and catch them there, bring them back to their own game?
I mean, that would be awesome, frankly, because it gets rid of that extra middleman of trading, right? You can just go roam around, find them, and then catch them, and you have them, right? So that would be cool.
I mean,
That
it
would
still
also
has a middleman in that you need to have friends who can actually invite you to their games, so there's still that human interaction element going on.
Join our forums in our Discord where you can find people to play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with.
it would be again a refinement of a feature that Sword and Shield kind of did well, I thought, with the idea of going into the max raids. And obviously, you needed to be online, but you didn't need a friend playing the game. You could just go online and you could get max raids. Like if you had Sword, you could get a max raid of someone from Shield hosting a max raid for an exclusive to Shield. And if you won the max raid, you got a chance to catch it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and it was a bit less tedious for me at least than trying to find someone to trade with, because you didn't need to find a specific person, and you got a little bit of excitement and the accomplishment of catching it your own without needing the other version.
Yeah.
And it was kind of necessary since they got rid of the GTS.
True. True.
They did not get rid of it. They moved it to home
No,
Which wasn't out when the game launched, so they got rid of it for a couple months.
for a couple months.
and then
So
on
this
top of it,
does
you have to
raise an
pay.
interesting point. This raises an interesting point of, will we be able to play with people who aren't already on our friends list? Like, if this is closer to an Animal Crossing sort of situation where there's limited interacting with the game world, where there's no way for people to really like if you're not going to do story together or something like that, so their ability to say troll you would be limited to, I don't know, catching the Pokemon that you're trying to catch. And if we're limited to communicating through like emotes, I could see it being plausible that you could actually bring strangers into your world.
If there's like actual instance gameplay where like multiple people can go after the same Pokemon, there is absolutely no way they're doing that without friend codes.
Unless it's something similar to max raids where basically everyone gets it.
Right, but even if you want to play with your friends in max raids, you have to use private link codes.
Or get really lucky.
Yep. But anyway, I think that was a pretty good discussion on, the kind of mechanical online and, multiplayer capabilities that the trailer showed off. How about what do you guys think? Can we move on to the new Pokemon?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Who else thought the first time they saw it that Smoliv was a regional Budgie?
I did not, but I can see what you were getting at there.
I thought it was
I
a
will.
screwed up model. I thought the model loaded incorrectly and it was just Badu.
I will tell you my first thoughts watching the trailer because running the Twitter account, there's a certain element of you have to try and anticipate the things that other people will find funny, what their tastes are, what their favorite Pokemon are. If it was just say my personal account, it would be nothing but Pokemon and Napoleon's Peninsular War memes. So watching that trailer, the first time I saw Lechonk, it's like, you've done it again, Game Freak. I knew at first sight that this was going to be the fandom's new favourite, and I I think that has been the case.
I'm personally more of a fan of Smoliv. I think Smoliv is far cuter than Lechonk. But I do admit that the name Lechonk is just fantastic.
Lechonk is cute and tasty.
I mean, I love olives, so same thing with Smoliv.
I have never felt so hungry looking at Pokemon designs.
So now we got to figure out what Pawnee
Now,
looks
you've
like.
got me wondering if we're going to have any more Pokemon cuisine sort of things in this region, because you're right. We could have the new Slowpoke Tales here.
Well, if we reflect on the fact that with the 3 starters, it does appear that at least 2 of them are based on foods. So we have Fuecoco, which is clearly a pepper of some description, and Sprigatito most likely refers to culinary herbs, I would think. And now we've got another 3 more non-legendary Pokemon, and 2 of them relate to food. I think I think
2 of the starters are based on food, and one of them is not the duck. What are you talking about?
well, that specific. There's something clearly like non-culinary going on with the duck. Although, strictly speaking, many Pokemon starters probably are edible. But there's a very clear signposting with 2 of the 3, I would say. So yeah, Game Freak were clearly distracted by a local restaurant while creating these designs, I think.
Oh, great! Now you've got me wondering if we're going to have some sort of new metal fairy Pokemon based on a actually, no, it'll be metal fire. Steel fire. What am I saying? Steel fire based on a paella pan, or however it's
That'd
pronounced.
be awesome. If there's not a paella Pokemon in this Spanish-influenced region, honestly, what are they doing?
The first time I saw Lechonk, I was just thinking, is that Viorga from Ranma?
Yeah, a lot of people have said it.
That reference might be a bit old for people now.
Yeah, what do we think? What do we think the evolution names are going to be? Is Lechonk going to evolve into Lechungus?
No, Lechonk evolved into Lord He Comin'.
I have seen a leak from someone reputable which seemed to indicate that Lechonk will take on a more feminine appearance, and that's sort of ambiguous shape under its eye could become some sort of mascara or eyeshadow or something to that effect. In which case, if that does turn out to be the case, it would probably be a play on the phrase to put lipstick on a pig.
So basically, you're saying we're going to get Miss Piggy as a Pokemon.
She better learn Karate Chop.
I'm gonna avert my eyes.
They got rid of Karate Chop.
Low sweep.
I'm curious, since we're talking about evolutions, I'm really curious to see what's going to happen to Smoliv.
It's gonna evolve into olive oil. It's gonna be water. What is it? Normal grass now. It's gonna be water grass. It's gonna be olive oil.
You said olive oil, and my first thought was the freaking Popeye character. No, I'm wondering whether or not they're going to, because I feel like based on its appearance and the history of Pokemon, it's going to go one of two ways, and we're either going to end up with a probably feminine, like humanoid shape along the lines of, like a Sarina or a Roselia and Roserade coming out of Badoo and out of Bounsweet. But I'm kind of hoping that we get like its evolutionary chain turns out to be something more along the line of Oddish's. That
Okay.
idea of it becomes a bit more anthropomorphic, but still stays very firmly plant-based.
This is small,
Um,
you said?
yeah, like I'm hoping that its evolutionary chain stays like humanoid plants rather than plant-like humanoids, if that makes any sense.
All right. Yep. Yep.
Or, a bottle of olive oil would also be fine.
I have been clamoring for some time for another just relatively straightforward tree Pokemon. Executor comes closest, but I would just love a pretty straightforward tree silhouette.
I mean, if going off that olive oil idea, what if we had an evolution along the lines of Shedinya's evolution back in the day? So it evolves, and you've got the like a tree now without its olives, and you've got the bottle of olive oil.
I think it's
I
plausible.
think that'd be a really weird choice. I'm not opposed to it, but I think it'd be a really weird choice.
Oh, I think it would be really weird and highly unlikely, but I'd like to see more weirdness like that. I mean, it's Pokemon. The weirdness is the fun thing.
Take that a step further with some of the other species we're looking at, and it's effectively using all parts of the animal to use the cooking metaphor. So you could get a brawn evolution, a tripe evolution. Maybe I'm just taking that analogy too far.
I don't want to. I don't want to have a tripe Pokemon. Anyway,
So-
there's a third Pokemon that was revealed in the trailer that we have
Yeah, the
neglected
other
to talk
one.
about because it's
Oh, yeah,
objectively-
Venonat.
Yeah, well, okay. It's objectively the weakest of the three. I think we can all agree, but I think the community at large also agrees. Palmy.
Hey,
the mouse,
I was going
Pikachu
to say I
clone.
disagree because Compound Eyes with Sleep Powder is a perfectly powerful Venonat strat, but then I remember there is indeed a third actually new Pokemon.
Any thoughts on Palmy? I think it looks cute.
None.
I
Let's
have
move on.
No, I have a thought. Darn it. A lot of people seem to think that Palmy is the quote unquote Pika clone of Scarlet and Violet.
Yes, I do.
Which it definitely has a lot of the things you expect to see out of the Pikachu clones. It's got the cheek sacks and the rodent-like face and basic Pikachu body shape. Which
and it's a
I
mouse
think,
Pokemon.
yeah, and I think that brings up a really interesting point for speculation, because Nimona has one. And a lot of people are wondering what Nimona's role is going to be. We talked about it earlier. Whether she might be the champion or, your main rival. And if she's a rival, like we've had rivals in the past who have had the Pikachu clone. Most recently Marnie with her,
Whatever that
what's
one
your name?
is.
Yeah, the hangry one.
Warpico? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Pika.
Yeah.
yeah, Morpeko. But if she is supposed to be a more final challenge, I think it's a weird choice for her to have the Pikachu clone. Unless the Pikachu clone, they break tradition as they have been doing in recent games, and the Pikachu clone finally gets an evolution, which has not happened in a very long time. Which I think would be really cool.
Well,
Giving
so what you're saying is we've got this mysterious, experienced character with a Pikachu clone. You're telling me that Nimona is the new Red, right?
no, because Red had
I'm just connecting the dots here.
Red had Pikachu. That's not a Pikachu
She
clone.
talks far too much.
So
I just want to point out one thing. I just want to point out one thing. Despite having the regional Pika clone featured in the trailer also shows off your trainer with a Pikachu.
True.
And that's a little different to what we've seen before. But
Is it?
Yeah.
Don't we always have Pikachu?
do we always get Pikachu in the trailer?
I
I
want to
don't.
say we had it in Sun and Moon.
Yeah, but
We had it in Sun and Moon because they were showing off a Z move, didn't they?
a Z move.
And also they revealed the Alolan Raichu in one of the trailers.
There's Z move.
Z.
Yeah, but I would be very surprised if we went back through all the Sword and Shield trailers and there wasn't a Pikachu somewhere running around or something. Because it's Pikachu. You always have to show off Pikachu.
Real quick comments from the chat. Tehungi says, I like Lechonk more as a first evolution, but I think I'm going to like Smoliv's evolution form more if it has one. I mean, if Smoliv evolves into Olive Oil, I definitely like Smoliv more.
Mm-hmm.
And then Arctic Fox Games says, Smoliv evolution could have something to do with the phrase extending an olive branch. Interesting.
If Smoliv becomes Olive Oil, will it be necessary to evolve the other food-based Pokemon?
Well, yeah. You can't just drink olive oil. You need to pour it in a pan and then... Well, I mean, you could, but... Fitzy, what were you going to say?
Level up Lechonk with the olive oil Pokemon in your party, and it turns into a normal fire type, and it's a roasted pig.
Now we're just getting ridiculous.
Oh, God. Oh, that'd be so bad. Why would they do that? But why would they reveal those two at the same time if they weren't going to do that? Anyway.
I'm a little worried for Lechonk's evolution if it does get one, that by the time the games come out, Lechonk will have been memed to death and back, and whatever Lechonk's evolution turns out to be ends up getting the Raichu treatment, where it just gets no love because the fandom has so heavily locked on to Lechonk already.
So every regional early normal type. Nobody likes Diggersby. Nobody likes Linoon.
Well, nobody likes the other.
Hey, I love Linoon.
Well, the question is, how quickly will we see a Lechonk only run?
I mean, within a week.
I mean, if we don't have someone else do it, I'm sure we will find someone on Bulba who is happy to try doing one on our Twitch.
No, the real run is getting all the Pokemon that makes a good 3-course meal.
I mean, at this rate, that's going to be Route 1 Pokemon only.
Anyway, so moving on to our last major topic that I have in my notes. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yep.
Cool.
Right.
So moving on to the last major topic. We also, instead of something like the starter evolutions or something like that, they revealed the box legendaries. And I'm going to butcher their names, so I apologize. So we have Koraidon and Scarlet, which is kind of a red bird-like type Pokemon with some blue, dare I say, violet and white accents, and it also has a big-ass wheel on its chest. And then there's also Miraidon in Pokemon Violet, which is a really kind of weirdly like android kind of Pokemon, like a lizard-like Pokemon. It's got like jet boosters and its eyes look like they're on screens. So I think these are honestly, after kind of, in my opinion, one of the weaker box legendary duos in with Sword and Shield. I think these are far more interesting and appeal a lot more to me than those. But what do you guys think?
I hate the
think-
Jets.
I think Koraidon is just straddling the line on being over-designed.
I think that if I hadn't already chosen which version I want to do, I think the reveal of these box legends would have put me firmly in the Violet camp. There is something about, and it largely comes down to that chest wheel that they have. And putting aside the motorcycle thoughts and everything, I feel like that the chest wheel in Miraidon, or however you say it, I feel like the chest wheel in Violet's box legend feels a lot better incorporated into the body than on the Scarlet legend.
Than the Jets.
I mean, the jets are what they are. I just specifically the chest wheel, it feels like such an afterthought on Koraidon, the Scarlet one. And the jets are weird. I don't know how I feel about them, but they do seem to fit the rest of the Violet Legends aesthetic.
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
it,
Glick, is
it
that
feels like
kinda,
a more cohesive Pokemon to me.
Glick, is
That
that kind of
wheel
what you were
has to
talking
be
about
like
regarding over design? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know who was talking about over design, so
Yeah. Glick mentioned that he was like the Koraidon was borderline over design, and you brought up the wheel feeling out of place. Is that kind of what you were referring to, Glick?
it's glaring and like not really good. Like I have to assume that's like an inflatable sac or a neck frill since it's a lizard, and like that would actually make sense physiologically. But that being like the standard pose just is not good. But the over design, I was more referring to like all of the feathers and like the head tassels that are handlebars. Like there's too many elements.
I think I'm in a very similar place to Glick there with respect to Koraidon, which is my preferred one of the two. I'm feeling that the motorcycle element is that step too far. I do actually quite like the ostentatious feathers and the striking colours. There's potentially a few design inspirations going on there. And this one might be a stretch, but certain elements of the silhouette seem to resemble a rooster or cockerel in a similar vein to the rooster of Barcelos, an important animal on the Iberian Peninsula. Miraidon, yeah, just too technological for my tastes. I do appreciate that there are existing species out there which reflect technology in some respects. Take the Magnemite line, for example. I think this does perhaps take it a step too far for my taste, but that may change.
Miraidon feels like it comes from a different property, like it something that's a Japanese show that's similar to Pokemon, but
Say the D word.
no, not a
We're
Digimon.
all thinking it. We're all
Digimon is
thinking it.
far edgier than that. There aren't enough
It-
belt buckles and sharp angles on it
But
to
he
be
I
has
was
Digimon.
going to say that.
jets. He has jets. How's that not edgy?
well, they're very round jets.
It's not a steel type. It doesn't. The Jets are just weird.
Do we know the typings?
No.
No, but it doesn't look like a steel type.
How are you gonna?
I believe there was again a relatively reputable rumor stroke leak that they are dragon fighting and dragon electric.
You can't talk about steel types saying that means they can't have jets, because we've already had a jet Pokemon and it was Dragon Ground
And that Pokemon looks stupid too.
and Sharpedo.
And I know I'm going to get hate for that.
Sharpedo's got like the jet on the back of it.
Yeah, but
That's just
not.
Bulwark is also a giant robot, and it's not steel.
I do. One thing that I found really interesting looking at the design of the box legends, and it's going back to something that I brought up earlier. The idea that the professors might be antagonists is the idea that the professor's aesthetics seem, to me at least, to almost be inspired by the designs of these box legends. The feathers and frills and the braided hair of Sada versus the design of Caradon, and the Tron lines and the computerized aspect of Professor Turo and Miradon. I'm wondering how the professors may or may not play into the story of the box legends, because there definitely seems to be an aesthetic link between them to me.
My pie in the sky theory right now is that like the main box legend is extinct, and each professor is trying to resurrect the fossil Pokemon in their own way, and that's why they have the more past-centric one is going for authentic look, while the future guy wants to put tech on it.
At first, I thought you were going to say that the...
So wait,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, so what you're suggesting there is same Pokemon, same fossil, but depending on which resurrection path is used, comes out differently. Is that what you're thinking?
Exactly.
I thought Glick was going to say that the box legends are the professors, because you paused right after the word is.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Wyndon, didn't you also find and post on Twitter something about what Coridon specifically was based off of, like a Spanish like mythological creature or something like that?
So touched upon the rooster of Barcelos already, which is has some folklore wrapped in it. But there's also the South American Quetzalcoatl, which I believe is an Aztec god, which was the great feathered serpent, and I did find quite a good image for the Twitter account where it's got this great feathered sort of headdress, which is actually quite an uncanny match for Coridon. But the other thing I'd say when we're thinking about potential inspirations and sort of the visual ideas behind these designs is that very often these days it's an amalgamation of particular ideas. So you with these legendaries in particular, it's probably the case that there might be 3, 4, or 5 different things going on that have coalesced into a single design, rather than sort of a one-for-one comparison. It must be that, ergo it can't be that, it's exclusively this and not that. So these are just some of the things that the designers could have been looking at when creating these new mons.
Yeah, I mean, I specifically remembered the Quetzalcoatl. I believe is. I hope I didn't pronounce that wrong, but
I'm sure you did.
On your thanks, Fitzy.
I'm sure you butchered it. You horrible, culturally insensitive monster.
I'll take it.
How could you not go and study the Maya language for
You just
years?
got called,
Right.
you just got called a culturally insensitive monster by an Englishman.
Whoa. Okay, we're not gonna attack. We're not gonna attack other people on this podcast.
But I mean, we've already had a Pokemon inspired by that particular Mayan deity to some extent, but I don't think that's really an issue at this point that they would reuse some of these inspirations. It's sufficiently distinct, and I mean, I think the Portuguese rooster that you're talking about there is the more likely main inspiration for it. It does raise the question: what the heck is the future one based off of, though?
So someone designed Toxtricity and then just kept going.
I'd buy that.
Any other general thoughts on the legendaries before we move on to some closing thoughts?
There was one just final observation that someone made on social media at some point, is that these are the first two box legendaries which appear to be facing away from each other, which could tie into that theme of past and future.
I don't think that's any. I saw that post too, and I kind of just shrugged it off.
But it
Aren't black and white also facing out?
No, they're facing inwards.
I know on black 2 and white 2 they are, but could have swore that Reshiram faces left and Zekrom faces right on the first ones.
well,
No, they face inwards.
I think it's nothing.
we'll find out.
Indeed.
Oh wait, on red, Charizard is facing the left.
Yeah, but Charizard's not a box legendary. It's just on the front of the box.
Charizard is an absolute legend. What are you talking about?
I mean, yeah, but that doesn't mean he's a legendary Pokemon. Anyway, I do want to go into some final kind of observation, like one-off observations that I made while rewatching the trailer. Feel free if I missed any to, insert your own here. But I've noticed still no voice acting. I know some people online, particularly a lot of PokeTubers that I watch and just general YouTubers, like video game YouTubers, were just saying, I really wish Pokemon had voice acting, specifically Legends Arceus, but in the trailers there are no voice acting for at least the professors that we know of. Of course, that could be implemented later, but any thoughts on voice acting in Pokemon?
I mean, given how many languages Pokemon is distributed in, I'm not particularly surprised that we don't see voice acting. I mean, when you look at many of the AAA titles that do have voice acting, they don't actually tend to have voices available in every single language. I think Breath of the Wild might have actually been like a notable exception there, but even then, that's mostly just because most characters didn't actually speak, and it was only like the cutscenes that were voiced. So I'm not particularly upset. I mean, the games are intended for a bit of a younger audience. They've always said that, like, to enjoy this game you need to be able to read. Like that was literally on the boxes for the original red and blue. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's an intentional choice to keep it out of the game, not just because that would presumably be quite expensive to add, even if it is just for cutscenes, but also because it would possibly encourage parents to buy the game for kids if they thought it was like voiced, and so the kid could play it without understanding the interface. That they might buy it for kids who are perhaps too young to really enjoy it.
Right.
and that would be a very negative experience for someone's like first exposure to Pokemon.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I don't necessarily think that Pokemon needs voice acting, but and it would cost a lot more to get it in all of the different languages that the game offers. So that's a good point.
And, and and let's be honest, it would get very annoying after a while to hear them asking us yet again if we'd like to heal our Pokemon. At best, we'll get an arrow to the knee style mimetic hit, but I doubt we'd even get that.
Well, I
For
mean,
me, I don't think this was their reasoning behind it, but for me, you know, Pokemon has always been, I'm in my 30s now, and Pokemon has always been like that one series that takes me back to my childhood. It's a big part of why I still play it. And a lot of people I know, like their first like big video game was whatever Pokemon game was out when they were a kid. And I have like I it triggers that sense of nostalgia in me. That they are one of the major video game series that has resisted moving into voice acting. Um, I I like it, and it reinforces that going back to my own personal past when I play um, the Pokemon games without the voice acting. Um, putting us, and then also the fact that like when a long running series that didn't have voice acting finally decides to incorporate it, uh, it can oftentimes get a little awkward. And Pokemon has a reputation for struggling a little bit when they, you know, up the technical side of their games. So if they don't feel up for trying it, I'm okay with that.
yeah, let's give them a couple more generations.
Yeah.
Okay, other things that
The
I
only
noticed.
voice actor, the only voice actor I want is the guy from the Pokemon Stadium who announced all the moves and did all the battle announces.
You don't prefer the Revolution guy?
I've never touched that.
Unfortunate. Kind of moving on a little bit. Pokemon centers are gas stations now. That's cool. Kind of reinforces the theory that people have had about the box legends being kind of inspired by bikes and motorbikes and whatnot. Yeah.
I can't help but think that they're doing that because of limitations of the engine. To me, that the way they've set up those Pokemon centers just looks like. So this is how you've adapted the campsites of Pokemon Legends Arceus to this regional setting. I think they will basically have the same sort of function. And I mean, it's interesting that you like compare them to, well, I'd call them a petrol station or a service station. But if we think of this game as being zonal rather than a true complete open world like Breath of the Wild, then I wonder if like reporting back to one of these is how you then like, well, maybe hop on your bike or whatever it is and go back to say the school, which presumably would be your hub location.
It's interesting that you bring up the, kind of, fast travel points, for lack of a better term. Somebody in the chat earlier was talking about, how most open world games have quote unquote classic Ubisoft towers where, you go to a tower and you get a map section, right? And they were talking about how maybe those potentially could be the gyms. And we did get a snippet of something that looked like a gym in the trailer. Although I don't know if it was specifically, marked with those towers, but it did look, there was a field with the Pokemon symbol in the middle, so looks like a gym to me.
Wait, so we're going to service stations and like either picking up the free pamphlet with the tourist map, or we're buying the old paper maps, just like we was used to from the petrol stations. Like, is that what we're getting at here?
Maybe. I was kind of shifting gears a little bit to talk about the gyms, but I mean, I don't know. I can see what you're saying there about, you know, the gas stations being like fast travel points, similar to the camps. I definitely think that's likely.
If the Pokemon centers have to be interacted with to heal your Pokemon, it's a failure. You need to be like that design. I have to be able to just
You need to
drive my Dino Cycle. I
wireless
just need to,
heal.
yeah, just pass under it, like drive by on my Dino Cycle.
It's the Pokemon version of New Jersey. All of the Pokemon stations are full service.
Technology is incredible.
Yep.
The other thing, the last thing that I noted, and it wasn't specifically in the trailer, but it was in a tweet retweeted by the Pokemon Company later. Toby Fox is back doing music for these games. He did a couple of songs in Sword and Shield. I think one of them was the gym battle theme. He is, if you don't know who he is,
I'm not sure it was the gym battle theme. It was definitely Leon's battle tower theme.
Yep, right, that's the one. But if you don't know who Toby Fox is, he's the lead producer, creator, whatever of Undertale. But I just thought that was kind of cool that he's involved with this. Anything else? Any other small thoughts? No, like Easter eggs, tidbits that y'all noticed in the trailer?
No, but I had not heard that he was coming back. And I just want to say, whatever your opinions on Sword and Shield in terms of game or story or what have you, I think one thing that a lot of Pokemon fans can agree on is that Sword and Shield had a pretty great soundtrack. So that makes me I was already really excited for Scarlet and Violet, but that makes me a little bit more excited. That he's coming back to do some more music because Sword and Shield had some really good music, I thought.
Yeah, agreed. Anybody else?
I mean, I've got something that's perhaps not for Scarlet and Violet. That little segment with the Pokeball at the end and the that interesting little background. I thought I saw bits of certain Pokemon in the background of that, which makes me think they're hinting at something that might happen in future. I'm not going to speculate more on that publicly now because I don't want to be horribly wrong, but I think it's worth people having a look at that last few seconds of the trailer and thinking about what they might see in that little like crystal background themselves, because I think that there's two Pokemon there, and if those are there, then that's suggesting perhaps another remake coming in the not too distant future.
Interesting. I did not note that, so I will have to go back and look.
It's the new forms of Charizard and Mewtwo.
Thank hell no.
Anybody else? Last thoughts? Closing thoughts?
One final observation.
Aside from Venonat.
One final observation on the trailer itself. A day beforehand, we posted a little fun bingo card for the trailer. Some of it was clearly ridiculous, some of it was ambitious. But one thing that we didn't expect to be ambitious was the name of the region. That was almost on there as a given. And we still don't have that yet. Just interesting to note.
Oh yeah, one thing that I wanted to ask in this cast, and I thank you for bringing that up, Wyndon, based on the region, do we think that it is solely based on Spain, or do we think it's based on the entire Iberian Peninsula, like Portugal included?
The whole Iberian Peninsula.
I would expect that, but yeah, I just figured I'd ask.
The map we've seen so far, sort of lurking in the background, of Game Freak's supposed studio certainly suggested it was the whole peninsula.
Awesome. Good to know. And then the other tidbit that I forgot to mention was, of course, we did get a release date for these games, and that is November 18, 2022. So fitting in nicely as the holiday game once again for the second year in a row in Nintendo's catalog for the Switch. Not surprised there. Figured it would be relatively similar to the Sword and Shield and Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl release dates. So there you go.
What is just interesting to me is that they have that does mean it comes out before US Thanksgiving, before Black Friday sales, doesn't it?
When is Thanksgiving this year?
Yeah, it always does.
Yes, that is correct. It's a week before.
Yeah, we don't exactly celebrate this here in Australia, so I had to check. Yeah, so if that's after, it just makes me wonder, like if this is potentially going to be one of the biggest sellers of Black Friday, if we might even get some sort of special pack. I mean, we know in many countries they're going to have the double pack of the games, but I'm kind of holding out for a special limited edition Switch console, or at least limited edition Joy-Cons or something like that.
I'd love a
Didn't
limited
the
edition
Sword
Pro
and Shield
controller.
Didn't the Sword and Shield, was it Switch Lite, not come out until like a couple months after the games launched?
I
I
don't know.
don't remember.
Well, that's the other issue, I suppose. The fact that as things are now, that there's certainly huge logistics delays. But I mean, if they're planning this far in advance, it could be possible for them to do it. I would have to double check exactly when that old light released, but I could have sworn it was their release. Oh, let me check.
I do hope that they put out a some sort of special edition hardware to go along with it. I mean, I think that would be pretty cool.
If I'm remembering correctly, the Switch Lite itself came out after Sword and Shield, and that's why it was so far after launch.
I don't remember.
Any other
It was
closing
so
thoughts?
long ago.
Closing thoughts, opinions, anyone?
No. Just my little purple bug boy. So excited.
All right. Well, if that's it, and I mean, Venenet is obviously a great thing to end on, so I think we can leave it there. Then I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming on to this cast and sharing your opinions about this new trailer. And also thank you to everyone in the chat as well. I also do want to mention that in a couple of hours, if you are in the Twitch chat, stay tuned. Go eat dinner or breakfast or whatever meal, play a game for an hour, and come back to our Twitch channel. Snowy will be streaming. I believe he's streaming. Is it Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl? Wyndon, do you know?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snowy is streaming something in a couple of hours, so come back and tune in for that. But yeah.
I just double checked those release dates, by the way. The Sword and Shield Switch Lite came out before Sword and Shield.
There you go. So, yep. Thanks once again to everyone for coming on the cast, and thanks to everyone in the chat for hanging around and chatting, and see you guys in the next one.
See ya.
Have a good evening.
See you around.